We want to bring in addition to our panel, welcoming Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi to the conversation. Thank you. You represent the Illinois 8th District.
Yes, thank you so much.
Appreciate you joining us, of course, along with our other panelists, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, former mayor. All right, so let's start with Governor J.B. Pritzker. We were just talking before you got here about what his speech would entail, particularly because, does he have aspirations for a third term? Does he have aspirations well above that at the presidential level? What do you think of this speech, particularly because he came out swinging at former President Donald Trump?
He sure did. I think that he mixed levity with seriousness in a way that was really digestible, and I thought, quite frankly, he was the happy warrior, and I think that's kind of the mantle he's kind of worn as our governor. I think that's why he's been so successful, quite frankly.
Mayor, if you were wondering what J.B. Pritzker would have sounded like on the stump and why he was vetted as the vice presidential candidate, you just heard it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good speech. A lot of good, memorable lines, both mixing up the attacks against Donald Trump, and he's been a surrogate all over the country doing exactly that, so he's very practiced, but also promoting Kamala Harris and Governor Walz and showing the difference. You know, as a governor who governed under 2 years of Trump, he knows exactly what the future could hold if he gets another term. And it doesn't look bright, not only not for Illinois, but it doesn't look bright for our country. So I think he's a great surrogate to make that case of why we can't go back.
He also brought up a lot of what he has accomplished as governor. He talked about roads, the infrastructure, groceries, clean energy, small businesses, particularly during COVID. So dual roles here, Mayor. It seems like he was working, of course, as a surrogate out there, but there was definitely an opportunity for him to lay his record out there.
Listen, there's no governor that's going to take that stage. No CEO, no mayor that's not going to tout their own record, given the opportunity in this incredibly big global spotlight. But I think he wove those things in to say, we didn't wait for the federal government. We took care of ourselves. But wouldn't it be so much better? And we all know that, having been under Trump and under Biden-Harris, to have a partner in the White House who respects the cities, who respects the states, and understands that the country can't function unless we're working together.
Right.
Congressman, there were several members of the delegation in Illinois who called for Joe Biden to step aside early on in the drumbeat, if you will. And I think there was concern at the time that Biden was slipping so much so that it might cost Democrats down ticket and it might cost him in the House and the Senate. Now there's this new energy around the party with Kamala Harris involved. Do you think it has done enough to flip to where maybe the Democrats can retake the House?
Oh, absolutely, yes. There's a 4-seat margin in the House, and right now we're seeing the energy and enthusiasm off the charts. I went up to Wisconsin to knock on doors. I brought several carloads of Illinoisans. I spoke to the Kenosha County Democrats, and people were just bouncing off the walls. And I'm not talking about tin walls. They were bouncing off with just so much energy, and I think a real mission, like, we got to do this. We got to come together and galvanize around Kamala Harris. And, oh, by the way, the alternative is completely unacceptable.
So if we're talking about day 2 here, we're going to hear from someone that's close to the hearts of many in Chicago, former President Barack Obama, the First Lady, former First Lady. Yes. What are your thoughts on how they've done so far with President Biden's speech last night and what you want to see tonight?
I thought President Biden's speech was very moving. I thought it was it struck the right notes. I think, Barack Obama coming back to the United Center is like Michael Jordan coming back. If Michael Jordan were to appear and start making jump shots, it would be like that kind of level of excitement and enthusiasm. And so I think, first of all, I think the United Center is going to erupt in just boisterous applause and a warmth we will expect. In terms of the message, I think Obama is going to talk about, yes, we're convening around a candidate, but we're also convening around a set of principles that infuse this candidacy. Like, why are we here? And I think a couple of them that I keep hearing over and over again is, first of all, everyone should be able to realize the American dream regardless of who they are, regardless of color of their skin or who they love or how they pray. And then secondly, everyone should get a place on the up escalator of the economy. regardless of whether they're poor, middle class, or growing a business. Those are the two sets of principles, I think, that help to inform, I think, some of the momentum here.
Mayor, we haven't heard a lot from Barack Obama. Everyone, looks forward to him because we know what an orator he is. I'm curious if you think he will harken back to those days where he stormed onto the scene in '04 with that speech, but focus on his message in his first election, which was hope. I mean,
Yes.
We all remember the iconic picture. Do you think he talks about Donald Trump much tonight, or do you think he focuses on hope and the future?
I think the overwhelming message is going to be about hope, change, optimism, and the future and the vision. I don't think he can avoid talking a little bit about Donald Trump, since he's had his moments with him as well. He was one of the original targets of Donald Trump's racism when he decided he was going to elevate his national profile. But this is an incredibly optimistic guy. I think his advice, if he's whispering in Vice President Harris's ear, is stay the course with hope, stay the course with optimism, talk about the future, make sure that you stay connected and rooted to the people. That's what I think the message he's going to set that will then carry forward for the next few days.
Can I jump in on that, what Lori said? I think that's exactly right. And I think Obama is about inclusiveness. Like, you always thought when you had President Obama, he was looking out for everyone, Democrats, Republicans, everyone in between. And I think for us as Democrats right at this moment, there's so many people I sense who are open to voting for Kamala Harris, but they're not sold yet. And so I think Obama is kind of a reminder of the type of governance that brings people in. And, I think that gives people even more reassurance than they have now, although they feel very warm about her.
Well, as you were talking about the hope, I was thinking about one of Michelle Obama's famous lines, of course, when they go low, we go high. And so if we talk about the message that she's going to send tonight, what's the likelihood that earlier we were talking about, is she going to be speaking to a certain demographic? Is she going to be speaking to women? And what does she bring to the table separate from her husband? And having them on the same night, though, they seem to have definitely a positive message, and one that, is kind of above the fray. Your thoughts?
Well, look, she's above the fray, but I think her husband would be the first person to say she's tough.
Yeah.
And she speaks to, I think, a certain demographic. Certainly the moms and the mothers out there, the women who care very much about their own independence, about bodily autonomy. But I think she's going to say, we've got to get this done. Right? We didn't get it done in 2016. We got to get it done this time around. And I think that's going to be part of the message that she's going to bring as well.
Thoughts?
I think it's almost a continuation of Hillary Clinton's speech in some ways. I thought Hillary Clinton's speech was also equally moving to me, because people felt like, oh my gosh, if only she had become president that night, what would the last 8 years have looked like? Now we're at a moment where Michelle Obama in part can explain, okay, we missed that opportunity. Now let's seize this one.
So what do you guys see looking forward to tomorrow with Bill Clinton? There are a lot of big names here. Star-studded in the Democratic world. And then we'll hear from the vice presidential candidate in Tim Walz.
Look, I think the momentum continues to build towards Thursday. Obviously, Bill Clinton also occupies really rarefied air in the Democratic firmament. He's still someone who is very much beloved and, frankly, broke through. Think about when Clinton and Gore ran in 1992, was it? Right? A Democrat hadn't been elected president, and it's what seemed like a generation. And so he was a generational change leader. So it's building on those themes.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think Bill Clinton is like the secretary of explaining things. And there's a lot going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
And he could be helping to kind of bring some of the pieces together and kind of weaving a picture of where we are and where we need to go.
It's hard to believe, but let me just throw this in, Amir. Since 1976, this is the first time there hasn't been a Bush, a Clinton, or a Biden on the ticket. Since 1976.
It's amazing. right? It's amazing. I think the other thing that people should be reminded of when they are listening to Bill Clinton speak tomorrow night, when he and Gore were running in '92, Democrats do what Democrats do. Everybody wanted their piece of the pie. We were tearing each other. And Clinton, positioned himself as a new Democrat, but he also said, I think pretty clearly, help me get elected.
Right.
All these
more
things
centrist.
that you want, more centrist, but help me get elected.
Yeah.
Come together, let's unify,
Yes.
because all these things that you want will not happen if a Democrat isn't elected.
That's
All
a
right.
very good point.